We're breaking down anything and everything Utica City FC related. This is the Keeper's Corner podcast with your hosts, Matt Sterling and Brandon Brooks. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Keeper's Corner podcast. As always, Matt and Brandon here. And we are less than a week away from the home opener here in Utica. How excited are you?
Oh, I'm all ready to go. If you can't tell.
I'm so ready for it. I've missed it. It's been great hearing the crowd for the Utica Comets games, but I'm ready for the soccer.
You know, same. It's definitely been long enough. We're ready for more.
Mm-hmm. And sounds like they got started pretty well with the scrimmage this past week. Unfortunately, with basically no notice for anyone. I heard roughly 30 people showed up. I know you guys couldn't make it. I was working.
Yep.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you'd like to be able to go and see them play. In my opinion, I liked our idea better of playing essentially our farm team, if you will, instead of playing Rochester. Because playing Rochester is a basically means nothing game to us. And, you know, I don't know. It's just, it didn't feel like that was the game I would have wanted to go see. That's all I'm getting at, really.
And plus, it was in Nexus on the practice field, which, I mean, in years past, we've had notice and been in the odd, and you draw about 1,000 people or so.
Yep.
And you have a good game, and this was, 25 and a half hour notice and standing room only.
Yeah, so not great. Definitely not great. But, I mean, for others, I'm sure it was, super good to be able to see them play again. Of course.
Yeah. I heard the final score was like 14-4, which is, basically what you'd expect in a regular season game against the Lancers a few years back.
Yep. Yeah, so not bad.
No. Yeah, they're hopefully in shape and ready to go for Saturday against the Heat. But that's just the first of many. So let's get into our season preview. We'll cover the rest of the teams that Utica plays this season, since there are enough of them, everyone in the East and 2 in the West.
Yep.
I guess we'll start with Harrisburg. We play them 6 times. We went 6-0 against them last year. We went 6-0 against them the year before. Somehow I don't feel like we're going to go 6-0 against them 3 years in a row.
No.
It seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
The Heat finished bottom of the Eastern Conference last year. Only won 1 game on the road. They're pretty good about beating up Baltimore at the Equine Arena there.
Mm-hmm.
They have new turf coming in this year.
Yep.
And with Florida ceasing operations, they were able to pick up Hugo Da Silva, who is returning to the Heat for the first time in like 5 years.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, we talked about it before, but there was a lot of movement this offseason. Just a lot of different changes for a lot of teams that had very much kind of a set, I don't want to say structure to them, but that's really the word that comes to mind. So, just had a set structure to them, had a set feel to them. And now it's just the landscape across the league is very different. I'll just to cite a few. I mean, we have Empire that is just completely different from obviously the Tayus, Chris Toth, Mo NDI,
Roberto Palmer,
Cisse, I believe, also.
No, I think Cisse's still there.
Cisse stayed. You're right. Yeah,
Lima, who's stuck up in the visa issues.
That was and then you're looking at other teams. I mean, Harrisburg for another one that has very much changed in the offseason. Not completely. I'm not saying that they are a totally different team, but I mean, picking up people like Joey Tavernisi, Onu Obasi, just a lot of different changes across the league. Hugo Silva, like you mentioned. I mean, just it's a different landscape this season. And, you did have some that stayed fairly the same across the majority of their roster. Utica is technically one of those because the majority of their roster really didn't change. Yes, we had obviously some big pickups in the offseason. We also lost some familiar faces. Of course, we lost Bo. We lost Steph. We've lost Correa. There's been a lot of changes on our side, but the core has still remained the same. But some of these, like I said, Empire just completely decimated. And not to say that they are helpless or anything like that. It's just their base roster just seems completely gone. They're just completely restructured.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting season.
Honestly, given their goalkeeping issues, I'm surprised we didn't end up giving Julian or Wilkin to them in part of the trade for Frank.
Yep.
But, so back to Harrisburg. 16, 17, and 1 last year. Besides picking up Hugo, who we saw, fantastic goalkeeper down in Florida, but he also had a fantastic defense in front of him. We'll see how that changes in Harrisburg.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, they picked up Tavernisi and Obasi. They also have Tetsane and Malcolm Harris who are returning. If I remember correctly, they either extended Tetsane last year or he was extended in Kansas City before he was traded. They also drafted Davinson Diaz, Eric Ribeiro, Blake Hilton, and Alejandro Arbeláez at the combine this past month. Whole bunch of young talent to be developed. And, there's really nowhere to go for them but up.
Agreed. Harrisburg is always kind of, and I say this as respectfully as I can, has always felt like the punching bag of the East. Nobody, including Utica, has typically felt concerned going against Harrisburg. And again, that's I'm trying. I know that sounds absolutely horrible, but it's speaking the truth. I mean, anytime they come to Utica, it's like, oh, we're playing Harrisburg. All right, so this should be a pretty easy, straightforward game for us. And I'm sure that multiple teams in the East think the same way. I would love to see that change. I would love to see that opinion change and be like, wow, this is going to be a good one. That sort of thing. For no matter if it's going to be good, no matter if it's going to be, a win, loss on either side, who cares? As long as it's going to be a real good, aggressive, just a good overall showing from both sides, where they actually, Harrisburg has to really push the other team to be able to allow them, for them to be able to get the win, or, they're able to come in and they're able to dominate. I would love to see that. Maybe not against Utica. Excuse me. Maybe not against Utica, but, maybe I'll eat my words. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, their biggest issue last year was, it's both offense and defense. They averaged 6.7 goals allowed per game. They never scored more than 7. At the same time, 12 of their 24 games ended within 2 goals. So it's not like they were out of them or, blowing people out.
No, they never really had
competitive this year.
They never had, they weren't necessarily blown out most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they never had like a decisive win that I can think of. So,
and obviously the addition of Joey should help give them another offensive option. Take some of the pressure off. Tetsane being there a full season was very good out of the back in his first year in KC. Another year to develop under league speed as well as in Pat Healy's system.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason that Harrisburg shouldn't score 100 or more goals this year after only scoring 89 last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could definitely see them, as you said, there's nowhere to go but up for them. So I could absolutely see them on the rise this season.
Yeah.
And personally, I would welcome it. We're always, whenever, I'll use this as an example. Whenever, in the first season, whenever Baltimore came to town, or whenever we went to Baltimore, it's like, man, this is going to be a good one, because it's usually we went like 50-50. We won half, we lost half. Then, of course, the second season happened. We're not going to talk about that. Actually, no, not the second. Not the half season, the third season. That one happened, and that one, yeah, we definitely did not go 50-50 with them. And then last year, we started to go 50-50 with them. In fact, we actually started to pull, I believe, if I remember correctly, we started pulling to like the 60% category for us. And that was awesome. But it was still, sorry.
I was going to say, we took 4 out of 6 last year against Baltimore.
Okay. So they took 60% basically. So I would love to have something like that with Harrisburg, just to make things, more interesting, not just for us, but if they're going into other places and going 50-50 with them, that just means that you have a well-balanced league, and not just having one team that's just getting basically dumpstered on by everyone else. So you want that competitiveness, because it makes it more entertaining for fans. More fans show up, and the league does better. End of story.
Yeah, obviously parity is fantastic for any league.
Yeah.
Next in the East, let's talk about Baltimore, since we played them 6 times again this year.
Do we have to?
We are unfortunately, or fortunately, and how much I like the rival. I like the rivalry, but I think 6 might be a bit excessive.
Maybe a bit much. Yeah.
Last year they finished 13-8-3 with 41 points. Same overall record as Utica, just more overtime losses and less overtime wins.
Yep.
They didn't get to host any games after the first round of the playoffs. They went into Milwaukee, won twice, kind of shocked the world after struggling on the road all season. And then went on to the Ron Newman Cup Finals and lost both games south of the border and against Chihuahua, which I think them making it that far was pretty surprising to everyone not a Baltimore fan.
I don't actually know which one was more surprising, the fact that they made it or the fact that Chihuahua beat out San Diego, which everybody thought was going, except for a few people called it. So I mean, myself included, I thought for sure that San Diego was going at minimum to the playoffs, but instead, no, they got knocked out. It was a very big surprise.
Whole bunch of drama surrounding that team in the offseason because of Gianelli Tuminello being arrested for embezzlement and other stuff, allegedly stealing upwards of $150,000 to $450,000 from the team. The drama around that has continued, if you trust the posts on social media from some guys that are usually pretty well in the know on how that team operates. Certain players may not be back because they were tight with said ex-GM. We'll have to obviously wait and see next Saturday when Baltimore opens at home against Utica. But assuming that that's just speculation at this point, what we do know is what we have online for their roster. And, Van Zella's back. He's been fantastic in goal. He is one of the best in the league. And his 4.13 goals against per game last year were second best. Had some back issues, but Zierhofer stepped in and did quite well behind him.
Oh, yes.
Back up.
Yep.
They shipped Roque out of town. They added Jesus Pacheco, a.k.a. Sweet Pea, as he was called out from in the Empire. They also brought in Rafael Aruja, Victor Pereras, who I liked out of Florida and would have loved to have seen come to Utica, but word on the street is he has a lot of responsibilities already in Florida with his day-to-day life. So might be one of those guys who just kind of shows up for games. The paid assassins. And they drafted Jonathan Holley, Aaron Hohenstein, and Max Dwyer. They did have some other losses, like who am I thinking of? Vinny Dantas.
Yes.
Has ended up in Mesquite. Everything points to them trying to get a little bit younger, a little bit faster. They still have Moy. They still have Pat. I believe Jake is still going to play for them from time to time on defense.
Yeah, he's not on the roster. No, he is not on their roster. Not to say that, and he's not even listed as an active either. He is just not on there. And I mean, currently Van Zella is listed as inactive as well. So I don't know how. Obviously, I don't know how accurate the website.
Max Ferdinand and Jonatas Mello. Yeah,
I'm not sure how accurate the MASL website is currently. I mean, I know that there's we've seen it in the past, but those could be some big hits if they are, in fact, inactive. And the question is, why would they be inactive? So,
I guess since they are officially listed as inactive, we'll have to see what happens there. But like you said, there's still a bunch of talent on the team. They added Josiel Sandoval as well from Florida. I think he kind of gets overlooked. And Donatelli, Dos Santos, Jeremy Rayleigh, Jamie Thomas, Mike Diesel, all those guys are back. Juan Pereira. They still have a core.
Yeah, they're not to be overlooked. I mean, even if they don't have Van Zella on day one, like you said, Mike Zierhofer he was a top-notch backup for them last year. I mean, he performed exceptionally well. I mean, he basically played just about half the season. And I'm looking at his stats now, and I mean, he played in 11 games and had a 77% save. I mean, he's not. Boy, I cannot talk tonight. I am sorry. He's not to be another one not to be overlooked. I'll just say it again.
Yeah. No, there's a ton. I mean, it could just be visa issues for those three. The speculation on the three inactives on social media, I'll just throw it out there because might as well at this point. Is that the players not coming back are linked to the issues with the former GM. So one of those if you were hanging with him, you're part of the problem. Bye. Again, speculation from some fans.
Of course.
I'm not going to give it any more than a grain of salt. And I mean, I saw a post from Van Zella on Facebook that he was back in Baltimore eating at his favorite restaurant. So if I had to guess anything, just paperwork issues, probably.
More than likely. Yeah. I'm sure it's just, they haven't put him on the active roster yet. And they just they haven't updated their website or whatever. Yeah.
It seemed from a lot of the other comments were like, oh, wow, they actually did something on their website. Cool. I guess we can look forward to that again just before next season. That is the Blast. Then we have the reigning regular season champs here in the East, Milwaukee Wave. Utica plays them 3 times. Ian Bennett, Derek Huffman, Willie B. Those are the big 3 that come to mind when you think of the team. Though they added Ricardo Carvalho from Florida. Should be the Robin to Bennett's Batman. Potentially. We'll see.
I mean, did you watch the game this weekend?
I did not get to watch the games. I was busy at work. I did see the score lines, and yeah, we can obviously have some of that thrown in here. They added Breno Oliveira, Cesar Correa from Utica. I mean, Jonah Dancer, I'm going to mispronounce his first name, so I'm just going to say McIntosh and Logan Lafferty through the draft. They had some injury issues last year. Some rest was needed down the stretch. They played Utica very well in the playoffs, demolished us on their home turf.
Yep.
Fought us tooth and nail in Utica, ended up winning in the mini game. Not as big of a rivalry with Utica as they have with KC, but it looks like there could be one developing. I don't know if it'll be, one of those secondary rivalries, just because you play in the same conference or division in this case.
Yeah, I didn't watch it live. I kind of went back and watched a little bit of, at least, I saw the Wave game. The ambush game. I watched the majority of that, which was actually awesome to see Correa actually get the winning goal for them. That was really neat to see. But I didn't watch as much of the Comets game just because it was kind of a runaway after the second quarter. So it was just like, I was surprised. I was surprised that they got handed their collective keister there as badly as they did. For those that don't know, the final score was 3 Milwaukee, 9 Kansas City, with the only goals coming from Ricardo and Derek Huffman. That's it. And it was 2 and 1 respectively. Huh?
I thought it was Mario Alvarez.
It is credited to Ricardo.
Oh, maybe he had the assists.
Mario had the assist on the first goal.
Okay, so, I knew I saw his name on the stat line, but I could not remember what it was for. They scored the most goals in the East last year, so to see them come out and score so few in their first 2 is a little surprising.
And they gave up a hat trick to Reggett, so.
And they also conceded the 3rd most goals in the East last year, behind just Utica and Harrisburg. So
fair.
They added to their offense. You had thought, you would think with Breno and Cesar they would be adding to their defense. Looks like there's still some kinks to be worked out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just it's the first 2 games. I mean,
they'll be fine. They'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's what did I talk about so much? Not this past season, the season before. Cohesiveness. They just have to develop that.
Yeah, they'll get there. Won't be an issue at all, I don't think. Really, if anything, the surprise was just that Ian Bennett was held scoreless in back-to-back games in the regular season, and we have to say that because of a qualifier, but it was the first time in the regular season since 2019. However, he's been held scoreless much more recently in back-to-back games, and that was the playoff games against Utica, where he did not score in the blowout they had in Milwaukee. He did not score in the game that Utica won at home to force the minigame. However, he did score in that minigame.
Yes, he did. And it was pain.
Like, there it is. You just knew it was coming. It just had to come at the worst time.
Yeah, it did. It sucks, but hey, it is what it is.
Let's see. Next team that we play 3 times. Well, they both played this weekend, so let's talk about the Comets. Since Utica beat them in a single game play-in game last year in the playoffs, we see them 3 times this year. It took overtime to beat them. And then they came out at home in their 1 game against the Comets this year and stomped them on their home blue turf.
Yes.
You mentioned Reggett with a hat trick. Forgetting that, or I don't know if you saw, but that was a first half hat trick.
Yes. I was going to say the majority of the scoring happened in the first half.
John Sosa, who was fantastic for them last year, has started off hot again. He had 1 goal and 3 assists in that game. And anyone that's listened to this for a while knows that I love a guy that can distribute and find opportunities for other players.
Oh, yeah.
Lucas Souza, Nicolau Neto's back in goal for them. They added some defensive help. They signed Chad Vandergrift from Florida, who was the Defender of the Year in 2021, I believe. And then made a couple trades. They sent Togba to St. Louis and they brought back Berto Palmer, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So they have 2 out of the past 3 remaining Defensive Players of the Year, which should immensely help Neto in goal.
Oh, yeah, you'd imagine so.
Plus, you got John Sosa on defense. Leo Gibson has returned for another season as just a player instead of player coach. The assistant coach, Stokic, has taken over. They look like a team that could compete to the level they expected to be at last year.
Agreed. No, they're coming out strong. So, if they can, depending on how they do fare against, obviously we have a very small sample size. But, if they can come out like that against one of the top teams from last season, I'm very interested to see what they do against, some of the other teams in this division.
Pardon me. How drafted?
Dare you?
Yeah, I know.
Yawning on this podcast? You are not allowed to do that, sir.
Yeah, I just will say I slept terrible last night. Just awful. I didn't get out of bed until noon, and I felt like I woke up at 6 a.m. It was a rough day. It was a rough day for me. But the Comets, they drafted well. Juan Esteban Gomez, Antonio De La Torre, and Ramazani Juma, who played for Krajishnik and made some appearances in the game on Sunday. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't make the playoffs unless it comes down to that 4-team crunch.
Yeah, like I said, they definitely look like they, again, started strong. They could very much be a one heck of a force in this season. So very interested to see what they do, and definitely a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, a lot of experience on that team. And last year, you can tell they just didn't live up to their own expectations and are out to compete for a Ron Newman Cup championship.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Well, some teams have more realistic chances than others.
Nah, I don't care if it's realistic or not. We're just going to win the whole thing.
Yeah. The other team that played this past weekend, I guess I shouldn't say that because a bunch of teams played this past weekend, just not Utica, unfortunately. St. Louis.
Well, we
played them for.
Did, but not really.
St. Louis finished second last in the East last year. 9-13-2, just 25 points. They only won 3 of their 12 games against Kansas City and Milwaukee, and they play them again 12 times this year. Paolo will be back for them for the full season instead of partial, and he will be a full year removed from tearing his ACL. So I expect him to be back to that top tier level that he was at in 2021-22. I mean, he was fantastic with his feet out of the back as well. And they added a ton of experience on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Where to go? Oh, Mike DeSilva, Ali Sadal, Skylar Funk, Corey Adamson, and James Togba. A couple of those guys were busy playing in the NISL, is it? I don't know. That other league that has trouble playing their players and paying their players, and had some stories coming out of like players sleeping on the floor of the arenas that they were playing at.
Yeah. Well, now that there's no worry about that.
Yeah,
anyway.
Not for them at least.
Yeah.
The league still exists, but we're sorry to those guys there. Get your experience and come to the better one.
Yes.
Or
Bring
owners.
Bring more.
Bring your whole team.
Why not?
St. Louis did get the better of Utica last year in their one meeting. So
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's the way the ball bounces.
Shouldn't have happened.
Look, we can absolutely go out for some revenge games this year.
Something that you've said over and over and over and over and over is don't take your foot off the gas, Utica, this year. Please hammer people into the ground. It's not enough to be up by 10 goals. We need more.
True. Yeah. I mean, the problem with St. Louis was they just didn't score goals last year. Only the Comets and the Blast gave up less goals.
Mm-hmm.
Will Eske looked very good last year for them. The big thing is going to be getting him help. Because if they can score, they're a dangerous team.
Yep.
That's a big if, though. As we saw, they came out in their season opener and scored once.
I mean, they came out and scored once, but they also held.
Oh, yeah, no, like I said, their defense is great.
Yeah.
Their offense. Kind of the opposite of Utica.
Or Milwaukee's defense was really good, too.
Yeah, Milwaukee's defense was good. Well, I don't know. It was bad the next or 2 days later, but they could also be playing 2 days later.
I was going to say, we're not going
to. The team that hasn't played yet and was on their home turf.
Yeah, it was completely fresh.
And that team had gotten 8 of their wins against St. Louis and Milwaukee the year before. So I don't know if they'll compete for a playoff spot, but they might be bumping into that 5th spot in the East.
Yeah, I could definitely see them.
That's probably like their ceiling is just missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of last year. It was what? It was us and them kind of competing for that final spot.
No, Kansas City was competing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kansas City, and yeah, but the year before, it was St.
Louis.
St. Louis knocked us out, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So
yeah, we needed the Comets to beat St. Louis in the final game of the year, and they just laid an egg.
Yeah, they didn't deliver for us, and we were sad.
Mm-hmm. Which, it's not their fault. You never want to put yourself in a position where you have to rely on someone else to make the playoffs.
Oh, of course. No.
That covers the opponents from the East. We got 2 that we play in the West. Oh, no, I almost forgot. Because Monterey is in the East. And we play them once.
Yeah, I don't fully get that. So I feel like that was just we needed somebody else in the East.
They're the easternmost team in Mexico. They didn't want to split up the Dallas and Mesquite teams, and then they were like, well, and then Guadalajara fell through.
Yeah,
and apparently Vegas is just never happening. I guess I don't know. I haven't even seen Ronaldinho mention anything about it on his social media. But the Flash finished third in the West last year, which, if you ask most fans, the West is the better team or the better conference.
Yeah, more difficult conference.
Yes.
Definitely is considered to be the premier
your highs
conference.
are higher and your lows are higher.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a ton of weapons. 5 different players scored 20 or more points last year. So, yeah, good luck picking who you want to stop. They have other options.
Mm-hmm.
No team in the East had a 500 or better record on the road. Monterey was able to do that. They do play Chihuahua 6 times. They are playing in a different arena this year. They'll be going back to the older one next year. But just like Chihuahua and Baltimore, they will have a mini field.
Mm-hmm. Good old baby fields.
And they opened up with a trouncing of the Strikers.
Yeah. Strikers had a
whole
weekend.
Lot of cards. A whole lot of cards.
Yes, a lot of cards.
It'll be. I really don't know where this team's going to finish. I think they make the playoffs, but they play the West 15 out of their 24 games, and 6 of them are against the reigning champs.
Mm-hmm.
So I could also see them missing that just because they have a tougher schedule.
I mean, yeah, they definitely have. I don't see them in. I definitely don't see them in the playoffs. Only because of, like you said, they play 15 of their games against Western teams, and considering that is again considered the harder conference to be in. Yeah, it's going to be an uphill climb if they want to make playoffs, but yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it happening with them.
No, I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting.
It will. It's always going to be interesting.
They do have the benefit, if I remember correctly, they get a couple games against Dallas, who was the worst team in the league last year. And talk about a team with nowhere to go but up. They only won 1 game, but.
Well, you could still go down further.
Exactly. Unfortunately.
If you won 1, you can still go down.
But they come to Utica for 1 game. And then the 2 games that Utica has against the West, 1 game's on the road, 1 game is at home. The home game will be against the Texas Outlaws, who snuck in to the playoffs last year. They started out incredibly hot and then cooled off, slumped in the second half, ended up beating the Strikers 7-2 in the final game of the season just to make the playoffs. Went into Tacoma, beat them 9-6 after losing all 3 of their games against Tacoma in the regular season by a total score of 27-9. And then ran into the powerhouse that was San Diego. They're young, they're fast, they got a lot of offense, and they added Uzi Tayu, Vinny Dantas, Julio Varela, Cody Ellis, Mike Hune, and Marco Jacques. Probably in the playoffs, another playoff team I would expect this year.
Just means I have to get a new Uzi jersey.
Yeah.
I just got the Empire one last year, and now I got to get a different one.
Yeah, they start. I had that wrong. Baltimore's home opener is this Saturday, same as Utica's, but they play Mesquite, so we'll get a good look at it. Or to Texas. They're not the Mesquite Outlaws this year. They rebranded to the Texas Outlaws. Got to keep that
right. Just like that other O team doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Mesquite doesn't either.
It's
Texas.
I can't remember who it was on their team, but they dropped 5 goals on us. One player last year in the game that went to overtime.
We had a lot of games go to overtime last year.
David Ortiz is on their team. Fantastic player. If anyone's going to score from mid and try to chip the goalie, it tends to be him.
Mm-hmm.
He plays on the national futsal team under Everton, so he's familiar with the coaching style. And they are a young team that added some veterans to, I don't think so much lead the way as much as anchor that core that already exists of the young guys.
Yeah, supplement.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Like where Harrisburg added guys in a way that's like, all right, this is to help get our younger guys, help them improve by playing alongside these guys. Adding the experience in Texas is just, hey, we think we're pretty good, but we could have some better subs and some better depth pieces, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yep.
Should be a good game when they come to town.
It should be. I always hope for a good game, entertaining game, regardless of the end outcome.
Yeah. Then Tacoma play out there one game. They, as mentioned, lost to the Outlaws in the playoffs last year. They're led by last season's MVP, Nick Pereira, who can find players as well as find the back of the net just as easily.
Mm-hmm.
They brought back their core, Pereira, Jamel Cox. They added Toth while Waltman is dealing with recovery from shoulder injury. They added Matt Brame, who we saw in Harrisburg. I think he had a pretty good year last year for them, considering everything. Mikey Herrera, Roman Torres, who I believe was playing in MLS for a couple of years, or at least the USL. They drafted Jackson Bunn at the Combine. They have a tough schedule just because they play San Diego 6 times, and they'll be a good one for grading how Empire's doing because they play them 5 times.
Yeah, so I mean, those will be some games to watch to see either, are we going to see kind of a 50-50? Are we going to see complete blowouts? Like that one will definitely help to gauge both teams, really. Mm-hmm. And definitely be able to gauge, like you said, where Empire's at this season, but
yeah. Now that is everyone that Utica plays this year in the regular season. And barring making it to the Ron Newman Cup finals will be everyone the team plays this year in total, playoffs or not.
I just wish we had more variety in December.
Yeah. 6 games. 2 against the Blast and 4 against the Heat. That's going to get...
It's going to be great.
I'm sorry, where is that? I just realized that's changed for some... Oh, I must have changed names. CQ Arena is no longer CQ Arena on the MASL page. It's listed as TU Arena. It's just Towson University, so it must have lost its sponsorship
and gotten a different one, or they said, "Hey, we can sponsor you for more."
Yeah, 6 games against our Eastern Conference rivals here to start the season. There we go. Milwaukee, Tacoma, Kansas City, St. Louis on the road. And we go between December 31st and then January 20th. So we have 3 weeks between home games there.
Mm-hmm.
And then March had a heavy schedule as well, if I remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 games in March. So it could be endurance test down the back half of the season for Utica.
So I was just thinking about somebody when we were talking about Harrisburg and how they've brought in a lot of, a good bit of good talent for this season that could kind of change how we look at them. They also lost at least one that I didn't think of until just now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he is considered to have one of the best facial hairs in the MASL.
Hoxie's gone.
And he is not on the roster at all. So, yes, for Andrew Hoxie is not showing up on their roster. And he was a top 5 scorer for them last season. He had, 14 points, 8 goals, 6 assists in 18 games. Not amazing, but still, top 5 for them.
Yeah.
So that's another one that, hopefully somebody like Joey, hopefully somebody like Tavernese is Joey. I don't know why I said Joey and then Tavernese. Brain, no work good. Hopefully somebody like Joey will be able to pick up that slack. In fact, I'm sure he would be able to. I mean, it is Joey we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So, but that was just another thought, another roster change that has happened between last season and this season. I assume he probably just retired and had other things going on, family or whatnot. So,
All right, so that covers our opponents. Let's talk Utica.
Utica? You want to talk about Riggies? You want to talk about half moons? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, look, if we're going to talk half moons, it starts and ends with Holland Farms for me.
All right, fair. Yeah, I can't argue with that.
I used to love Hemstratz back in the day when they had like the real bakeries that you could go into. But ever since they just went to these mass-produced ones, it's just not the same.
No, it's never going to be the same when it's a mass-produced thing.
No. I miss the Hemstratz bakery in Ilion. Growing up. Going over.
All right, so let's actually talk what you're talking about, which is the soccer, the soccer team for Utica.
At the moment, we have 2 inactive players, Christian and Toby, who we expected with visa issues, unfortunately. I mean, I personally loved what I saw at practice when I went a couple weeks ago. Things fast. I think by the end of December, we'll know if this let's score 11, 12 goals a game and just blow people out of the water that way mentality is going to work, or if by January we're going to be needing defensive help again.
I mean, I can see it working out of the gate. Just hit them so fast and hard that they just literally, by the time they realize it, they just can't catch up. But once people catch on to something like that, it's a problem.
They already have. I was listening to the Blue Turf podcast, which is Kansas City's.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
Well, I mean, Monterey's got a blue turf now too. And we have a blue turf, so there's 3 blue turfs. But
everybody needs blue turf. So you never know which field you're at or field you're watching on Twitch.
Everyone should just get team colored turf. Like, I want teal turf in St. Louis.
I want them to blend in. I want it to be like camouflage. Where are they? Where's the team? I don't know.
But even they said, there are some teams that will be happy to just score 11 goals and try to run you out of the stadium, but that's tough to do. You need defense to win championships in this league. So,
gee, I wonder who they were talking about.
Oh, that there was no question in my mind who it was, and then later they just blatantly said there are teams like Utica. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3 defenders active at the moment, so it's glass cannon is the word that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the phrase, not really the word. It's 2 words.
I don't know if you read that piece from Ben Burnell a couple weeks ago. It was in the Rome Sentinel.
I did not.
I shared it on our social medias, but it mentioned that coaching this year is pushing towards a almost positionless type of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's expected to play at both ends. We're not going to see defensive runners, and I could see that in practice. Like when they went to a scrimmage, split squad scrimmage.
Yep.
Frank was getting back on defense. He wasn't having someone come in and run for defense while he went onto the bench, and it was going both sides. The team should be relying on everyone at both ends.
Yeah, so essentially, they're more of a flexing, not schedule, but a flexing squad versus assigned roles.
Yes,
is kind of what you're seeing.
Yes, that'd probably be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense.
I guess for anyone that's watched Ted Lasso, think about it as total football, just for the indoor game.
I could see that. I mean, I could see a big downside to something like that, though. Mm-hmm. And that's tiring out your squad a lot quicker. Potentially needing more swaps if you're going to be playing essentially both sides, offense and defense. So that's a bit of a problem.
Well, we'll just kind of have to see how it goes here in December, and then judge after the first few games, I guess.
Judging.
I mean, we've talked about the roster moves already many times this year. You bring in Frank to be, the best way I can describe it is like LeBron James going to the Heat. You already have a Dwayne Wade and Gordy Gerson. He's your all-star. He was your leading scorer. You just brought in someone to be Batman alongside his, not to make him Robin, but
I thought you were going to say bringing in Batman to be alongside LeBron James. It's like, what?
Now, whenever you get all these, top tier players together, there's always, all right, who's going to be Batman, right? At least in, you know what I mean? It's less Justice League and more like who's the leader and who's number 2. And they're both ones. One is 1A and one is 1B.
Oh, hell, I thought for a second, we were just putting together Space Jam. Get some Michael Jordan, some Bugs Bunny, some Frank Tayu.
Look, if Bill Murray comes in to save the season for us in the final game, I'm okay with it.
Da, 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 da.
And we're sued.
Listen, if half the people on this actually understand that reference, I will be happy.
I think a good portion of them will.
That's all I ask. I don't want to feel that old.
We'll see how the rookies do if we ever get them added to the roster. Mm-hmm. But with 23 active players, there's obviously room. Belliard comes with that futsal experience. Could be someone that kind of takes Christian's role, being a more technical player.
Yep.
DJ, saw a little bit of him in practice. one-on-one against Frank, he picked his pocket like Robin Hood. It was just like, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing defensively.
Yep.
Goodell, fast. Another young, fast defender, which, as we've seen, is crucial in this league. You need speed to get back on defense because otherwise you're going to get killed in transition.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Which is what happened in 2021 and 2022.
No. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, we didn't have any bad games that were just people running past us.
Never happened. Just
Nope.
Don't even know what you're talking about.
Let's forget about that
just,
one.
Yeah, it just didn't happen. Nope. I refuse to believe it.
After making the playoffs last year, obviously the goal has to be to improve. As a team, your goal has got to be to make the Eastern Conference Finals or better.
Of course.
Obviously, you're aiming for the Ron Newman Cup. And adding the leading goal scorer, point scorer, power play goal scorer. I mean, I went through this on my own, but I should look it up again. Stats, league records are somewhere in here.
Mm-hmm.
But no reason that this team shouldn't be one of the best offensive ones in the league. You're getting year 2 for so many players, which is when we usually see a big jump in professional sports.
Yes.
What would you like to say?
Don't make me hit the buttons.
Is it Sogs?
If I can remember which button it was.
Here
Otherwise,
we go.
It's going to be superstructure.
Career games played: Frank Tayu, 181. Ian Bennett, 180. Career points: Frank Tayu. So in career goals scored, in one more game, Frank has one more goal than Ian, and he's done it on almost 200 less shots. Career power play goals, Ian, Frank's 4th. Game-winning goals, Frank is 1st all-time with 36. He has the record for most goals in a single season at 71. The most game-winning goals in a single season, 10. I mean, there's no reason when you add a piece like that you shouldn't expect goals, and more goals from this offense.
That's what you hope for. I mean, obviously, Frank is always going to be not a target, but he's going to be watched in every game. I mean, it was the same thing when he was on Empire. You had to have somebody big on him. And I mean, some of these teams might struggle with that a little bit. But between him and Mo NDI, I mean, those two can make things happen. And, with our core Utica squad on top of that, I mean, we already had a great powerhouse of scorers. The only thing that we could run into is something similar to what we used to talk about with Christian coming from San Diego. Is do people start getting overshadowed and kind of fall back into obscurity? And the next thing you know, maybe they're not, 100% anymore on the field just because they just don't feel like they're, appreciated or anything because they're just getting overshadowed by these powerhouses that are in the front. So it would be interesting to see, how that shakes up with Frank and the rest of the team. As long as it doesn't become just Frank in the Utica squad. Yeah. I mean, they definitely will need to mesh and can't always just give it to Frank. It's not obviously Can't just throw it to him. Gotta make sure that it gets spread out, because utilizing him too little is a problem. Overutilizing him will be just as much of a problem.
Yeah. Now, Gordy comes in after a year where he scored what, 22, 23 goals and like 19 assists.
Yes. Around there.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask for more than that. I mean, if he does more than that, fantastic. But what I said last year and the year before and the year before is this team needs shot creators.
Yes.
And if you don't rely on Gordy as much offensively for just getting goals, or you're not relying on Nate as much, or it will. Attention is being drawn to Frank. They're double teaming him. They're man marking him. Even if they're still playing zone, you have one guy manning him up. It will open up opportunities for other people to find the net.
Right. Having him be the attention puller could also, like you said, make opportunities for our other key scorers, or just, anyone, but in particular, as you mentioned, Gordy. I mean, he's a huge threat in and of himself. So, to take your eyes off him because of another big scorer, that's dangerous. So it's like, who do you keep your eyes on in that instance? Who do you try to double team? And what happens when you do?
Yeah. I mean, assuming you're running your best players out there for the first line, your offense is going to be Nate as your midfielder, and then Gordy and Frank up in front of him.
Yep.
And honestly, that would give so many options. And, Frank's also capable of finding other players for goals.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, if they're double teaming him and someone's open, just pass it, man. Let's get Gordy. Let's get Nate. Let's get Nillen. Let's get Al. All these other guys on offense. Let's get them involved.
Yep. Taylor Walter Bond, you can't underestimate him.
So he had a child in the offseason.
Yep.
And may not be around for a little bit. Just raising a kid.
For obvious reasons, yes.
Yes. Congratulations. More power to you. Family comes first. Fully understand it.
Well, we should expect to see him, I would say, at some point.
Yeah.
Just might not be right away, which totally fine.
If NDI is playing out of the back, he's a guy that's capable of a 20 assist season.
Mm-hmm.
And if Nate stays healthy, the only reason he didn't have 20 assists last year was he got injured. If you have three guys that are giving you 15 to 20 assists, that is huge.
Oh, yeah.
We can have Wallace score us for days.
And just those opportunity creators, got to have those in order to have the goal scorers.
Yeah. Andrew, obviously, number one goalkeeper again. Mr. Stretch was resurgent last year when he had a defense in front of him.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see how that works out this year.
It feels like when he's confident in the people in front of him, he is more confident in himself.
Yeah.
If he's not confident in the people in front of him, then yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was with Neto in KC last year. Their defense was a little shaky, especially after it picked up some injuries. And a player that was already kind of known for his letting his temper get the better of him at times.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why some fans referred to the goalkeeper serving their own blue card change being called the Neto rule.
Yes. I mean, we've seen. Don't get me wrong. We've seen Coughlin get hit with quite a few blue cards too, and have him having to serve those. I mean, let's be honest. That's literally the only time we ever saw him come off the field. Otherwise, he was on the field.
He's serving a blue card or six attacker.
Yeah, and you never saw Wilkin except for when he was in the box.
Yeah. Personally, I think I'm excited most for what we can see out of some of our year 2 guys. When I caught that bit of practice, Nilton and Fernandez were just terrorizing the defense.
Love to hear that.
Oh my god, they looked phenomenal.
I want to see more. I want to see more Rafa. I want to see more Rafa. A little menace.
You want that menace.
I want that menace on the field. Like, it sounds, based on what you're saying, because I wasn't there, I didn't see, but sounds very similar to, when Rafa was terrorizing the offense and trying to get the ball back from their offense. He can just be a little menace, and I love it. So I would love to see more of that aggressiveness from, not just him being on the field and being able to watch him do it, but from anyone, like getting up in their faces and just throwing our weight around, essentially.
Yeah.
Even if you're a little guy, throw your weight around anyway. I'd love to see more of that.
And if we get solid seasons out of our, I don't want to call them role players, but they're not guys that you're going to expect to stuff the stat sheet. They're going to quietly lock down guys, draw defenders away. They're periphery.
Right.
They're guys that you might not catch. They'll get a goal or an assist here or there. They'll have big blocks. Your Dylan Hundelts, Ronnie, Isak. They didn't stat stuff last year, but they did have key moments in games. If they can just perform to the same level, this is a team that can go far.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be a high stat person, a high stat team member to be extremely important to the team. Mm-hmm. Playing your role and doing it very well is just as important.
Anything you'd like to add about the team before we do our season and, I guess, home opener prediction?
Sogs.
Okay. Let's take your 8 playoff teams. 4 in the West, 4 in the East.
Oh, boy. 4 in the West, 4 in the East. Well, obviously, East, Utica, number 1. Mm-hmm. Maybe not number one, but I just mean one of my first pick. Yeah, in no particular order. First pick, obviously, Utica. That's just without question. Second, Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. As long as they, get the first couple of games jitters out of them and they start performing again as we would expect to see them do, then, I could see them definitely being there. Third, it's hard not to say Baltimore, given their track record, especially being, coming in second last year. I have to go with Baltimore on that one. God, that hurts. And I think the last one, I'm going to have to say Kansas City. I'm going to have to go with Kansas City. I mean, I'll be honest. I literally wanted to say St. Louis just to spite you, but that would just be a throwaway. So I would have to say Kansas City.
Okay.
West. I'm just going to get the 2 obvious ones out of the way. San Diego, Chihuahua. Like, I could just see them. Those 2 are very likely to be in there. So I'm just going to get those 2 right out of the way and nail down those 2 picks. Second 2. And this one hurts too, because I'm actually going to say, Texas and Tacoma.
Okay.
And leave out the Empire. I hate to say that because Empire has been like my Western team that I enjoy watching, but because of such a core restructure that it feels like they've done with that team, I don't know. It's just hard to really be like, yeah, these guys are going to hammer it home. They're going to make it to the playoffs. I don't know if I see that happening when you've got Tacoma that's been bolstered. You've got Texas that's been bolstered. Some literally coming from Empire. I have to go with that. I really have to go with Texas and Tacoma. I don't see Empire, and I don't see Dallas bouncing back this season. Maybe bouncing back a little, but not to that extent.
Right.
So yeah, San Diego, Chihuahua, Texas, and Tacoma, in again no particular order.
Well, I'm in agreement with you on the West. One difference with you in the East.
Utica's not going to make it.
Now, Utica makes it. Milwaukee makes it. Kansas City makes it.
Oh, of course you want to say Baltimore's not going to make it.
I think there's too much drama surrounding the team. Too many outside forces. If what some people are claiming on social media is true, and we aren't going to see Max Ferdinand and Jonatas Mello and Vanzella.
Those would be some big hits to not see at all.
Or, they end up getting shipped elsewhere. That would shift some balances. They weren't good away from home until the playoffs, which I think has more to do with the fact that they had to play their playoff games, that series against Florida early. And then they won a few games in the second half of the season on the road, but they were not that good on the road. And I know you're looking because I can see the look on your face. There was 3-6-3 away from home last year.
Not that. There's somebody missing.
Who?
On Baltimore. There is another player missing. I didn't even notice it.
Oh, I noticed it, but I didn't want to, because there's some rumors that might. Yeah.
I'm not seeing Nelly. Like, he's been. What's the nicest way?
Punching bag.
He's Utica's favorite punching bag, and I don't see him. I just happened to notice that.
He's in his 40s, so if he's retiring, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that too. I don't know. That's just kind of a shocker. The reason I brought that up is the way I'm looking at this roster is, and with all the drama surrounding the team, it's going to be really hard for them to bring players in.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to want to be part of that. Their core, a lot of their core base is either in trouble because of it, potentially, allegedly, or it's just
on the wrong side.
Getting out of, or just, trying to get out of, it seems like maybe some are just trying to get out of Dodge too. But I happened to notice that he was gone too. And it's like, I wonder if he just read the writing on the wall and said, I'm out. Could be the right choice. Who knows? Just get out of the game. And if nobody necessarily, if you didn't have a team you wanted to go to, then, you just get out of the league. Who knows?
Yeah. If I remember, he was 41 or 42, which, yeah, you got some guys playing that late in their careers, but it's also very understandable if at that point he wants to hang it up.
Yeah. I don't know. I may,
Oh, he is older than I thought. He will turn 45 on December 28th.
Oh. I mean, don't get me wrong. Me and, the rest of 212 usually give him a lot of flack, but
yeah,
it's all part of the game, with nothing meant about it at all. It's literally just we got to give somebody crap, and we just happen to pick him. But who knows? I mean, he's been all over the league.
Yeah.
Just, looking at him, I mean, obviously, he, a while back, I mean, he was with the Silver Knights in Syracuse, the pre-Utica team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was on previously Mesquite, Ontario. I was trying not to say the O word, but it's right there. So
look, it was Ontario that year, so it's fine.
And I mean, he's spent like 4 seasons with the Blast, 2 with Harrisburg, and 1 with San Diego for the little short season. So I mean, he's been all over, but he's been everywhere, and who knows? Like you said, maybe he's just hanging it up.
Yeah,
I don't know. Again, just me noticing stuff.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just think there's a lot of stuff, off-field stuff, and their core that they brought back. The rest of the league's trying to get like younger, faster, more aggressive both ways.
Agile.
They're kind of still in that older school mentality where like your offense is offense, your defense is defense.
Yep.
And it works great on their little field. They went 10-2 there last year, but they went 3-9 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
They did have those 2 wins in Milwaukee in the playoffs, but as I was saying, I think that's mostly they had their playoff series against Florida and then had to rest. They had 2 weeks of rest, whereas Milwaukee played Utica hard, played the mini game, and then it was, I want to say, like 5 days later they had the games against Florida.
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround.
And Monterey, they're a good team. I fully expect them to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They competed against the West last year. They're competing against them again. I just think it's weird to have them in the East when most of their schedule's against the West.
Yeah, I was very shocked when I saw, Mesquite part of the East instead of the West. Did I say Mesquite? Monterey. I meant Monterey. I knew what I was trying to say. I just didn't say it well.
I think I said Mesquite as well, but Monterey.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see Monterey as an Eastern team. Like, I did not expect that at all. So, I mean, so be it. It's, that's the decision that was the decision that they wanted to make, and that's what they went with. So, listen, don't you judge me for not being able to talk. How dare you?
The words, they're not coming out right.
The words, they are bad.
Yeah, those are my 4 that I got in the East. Which, given how visa issues can affect just getting guys to Monterey for a game, could make for an interesting playoff series for whoever has to play them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk Saturday. Home opener.
Do we have to?
I know you're sad because, you have prior
I don't get to go. I want to go, but I don't get to go, and I'm sad, and it hurts.
I mean, I'll be there, but I won't be there, but I'll try to be there for some of it.
Sadness.
It's the home opener. It's Utica against Harrisburg. Obviously, we haven't lost to them in the past 2 years. And then there was no season in 2021 for Utica or Harrisburg.
Mm-hmm.
They did win the last game that we played them in that shortened season, but I can't remember the last time they've won in Utica. And like I said, they struggled on the road last year.
Yep.
Harrisburg at Utica, 1920. Utica won that one. Utica won that one. So they didn't beat us that year. So that's 9 straight home wins against them. That's the Blast. I don't want the Blast. At Utica, nope, we beat them there. At Utica, nope, we beat them. Okay, so since making the move to Syracuse, Utica has not lost to Harrisburg at home.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this game will be very much a good judge of where both teams are at.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a trouncing by Utica, then that's actually, I would say, better than we did last year, because we never really had like a real just beating, essentially. Yeah. It was always fairly close. We always expect every time you and I would, well, at least I usually would typically call it, it was going to be a much bigger gap than it really ended up being. So I think that would be very much a gauge of this season. Either it will end up being much of the same. It will be a much closer game. It'll be really bad. And we won't talk about that. Or it will be that just absolute trouncing that I talked about. So, yeah. I mean, there's basically 4 different outcomes that you could think of, and any of them are possible. It's a new season.
It is a new season. Anything and everything could happen. And that's terrifying.
It is. It really is. Beginning of the season is always kind of terrifying because it's like, what's going to happen? Nobody knows.
So, do you want to give a goal prediction? Because I'm going to say Utica wins 8-3.
You literally took my numbers. You literally took my score. I hate it here. I want to go home. Oh, wait.
Good news. You are home.
It was literally what I was. I'm so angry. It's literally what I wanted to say. Oh. Fine. Just for the sake of, for the sake of argument, no, we're going double digits. We're going 10-4.
Okay.
Just since you took my numbers, I'll make up something else on the spot. We'll go with the old 10-4 rubber ducky.
Who's Utica's leading scorer?
You have to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you got me questioning. Why do you do this to me? Why do you hate me so much? I mean, obviously, I want to just go with the cop out and say Frank. But there's a lot of factors there. What kind of cohesiveness is he going to have with the rest of the team? How have they been practicing things? Is he the favored target, or is it more like a Gordy? Just for the sake of my own, just for me, I'm going to go with Frank.
Okay.
Now, do I necessarily think that 100%? No, but I think you're probably going to say who I'm actually thinking. So I'm curious to see who that might be.
If you're thinking Gordy, you're right.
Yeah, I was. I was absolutely thinking Gordy.
I'm going by like points collection, and I think Gordy could easily have 2 and 2.
Okay. Points collection, I can absolutely get behind that for sure. I was thinking just straight goals.
Just straight, no.
Point collection, yeah, I no question Gordy. And that's mainly because he is both an opportunity creator and capitalizer. So we see more of the latter from Frank, at least in past.
I think we see 2
seasons.
and 1 from Frank.
Okay. All right.
2 and 2 from Gordy. And then the other 4 goals come from Nil and Chino. Maybe an empty netter from Andrew.
You just want that. You just want that. You want that empty netter so bad.
Look, he had so many assists last year. Let's just get him some goals.
Oh, so you don't even think anybody gets a hat trick?
I don't.
All right.
I think we see a diverse offense in this first game.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's actually better in my book.
Yeah.
The more people contribute, the less any team can focus on one guy.
I can get behind that. Yep.
All right. That's our wrap up. That's our predictions. That's our season preview. There was a lot in this episode, and we know that, and we do not apologize because we're just excited.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have to mention here besides our usual? You know where to find us on social media by now. Next week, we should have a guest joining us that I think is just dynamite. If you don't get that, well...
If you're not down... Oh, I'm sorry.
Anything you'd like to add, Brandon?
That's not the button I wanted. That's the stat man. That's the one I want. There it is. Need to label these things, apparently.
That would be easier for you.
Yeah, if only. No, I just have to end it with the Sogs.
Okay.
Sogs.
Well, hopefully it'll be loud. It'll be packed. It'll be a fun night at the Odd on Saturday.
You'll have to tell me all about it.
Season. The 2023-2024 campaign will be underway in just a few days. So, thank you for listening. Matt, that's Brandon.
Yes, I am.
We'll see you at the Odd. Well, you won't.
Why you gotta rub it in?
Go Utica.
Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Keeper's Corner podcast on whatever podcast app you use. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to interact with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. We have a TeePublic shop where you can get UCFC player swag or help support the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate it. And one last thing, go Utica City.